Have you ever wondered if the colors you see might be completely different from what someone else sees? That vibrant red you perceive might not even exist in the same way for the person next to you. The truth is, we can never be sure. Science shows us that what we think we see is often just an illusion created by our brain. Is the world you see the same as the one others perceive? Get ready to question your perception in a way you might have never done before. Picture this. You're looking at a field of flowers on a sunny day, surrounded by vivid colors. But what if I told you those colors don't exist outside of you? That's right. Science tells us that what we call color is actually a creation of our brain. The electromagnetic waves traveling through space don't have color. They are just variations in wavelength. The magic happens when our eyes capture those waves and send information to the brain, which then paints the reality we see. Fascinating, isn't it? Now think about this. Every time you see the blue sky, it's your brain interpreting a specific frequency of light. The blue isn't really there. It's a personal interpretation of the light entering your eyes. It's like a magic trick happening constantly right before you, and the magician in this case is your brain. And what's even more interesting, every human could be seeing a different color reality depending on how their brains process those wavelengths. So color becomes a kind of shared illusion. Want to see it another way? If you've ever worn polarized sunglasses, you've probably noticed how light and colors change depending on the angle. It's almost as if the world around you transforms into something new. But in reality, what changed wasn't the world, it was how your eyes interpreted the light. This reinforces the idea that color isn't a fixed characteristic of an object, but something our minds create. This phenomenon raises an even bigger curiosity. Is your red the same as my red? And if color perception varies between us, how can we be sure we're experiencing the world in the same way? This leads us to an even deeper question about how we perceive reality around us, which sets the stage for the next reflection. Have you ever wondered if the colors you see are the same as what someone else sees? You might look at an apple and say it's red, and your friend agrees. But is he really seeing the same red as you? Communication between humans is full of subtleties, and in the case of colors, what we agree on is more about names and less about the actual experience. This is because we can't enter another person's brain to know exactly how they're perceiving that color. And here begins the mystery. Are our brains interpreting the world in radically different ways? This question isn't just philosophical, but practical too. Imagine two people working in graphic design, a field where color is essential. Even if both agree on the tones and palettes, they might be experiencing completely different shades. That's why calibrating monitors is so important. Our individual perception of color can be influenced by countless factors, from genetics to minute differences in eye physiology. Another practical example is the famous color test, like the viral dress that some people saw as white and gold, while others saw blue and black. This phenomenon proved that perception differences are real and that the way we interpret the environment around us can vary greatly. The most curious part? Even knowing this, we still get surprised when confronted with these differences, as if our perception is the universal truth. Now, if this can happen with something as basic as colors, imagine how this difference in perception applies to other aspects of life. How can we be sure we truly understand what others see, feel, or think? This brings us to an even deeper question about the nature of human experience, something the concept of qualia tries to explore. Let's dive a little deeper. The concept of qualia is one of the keys to understanding why some experiences are so difficult to describe, like pain or color. Imagine trying to explain to someone who's never felt pain what it actually feels like. You can describe the sensation, use metaphors, but there's an unbridgeable gap between direct experience and explanation. This is what we call the explanatory gap. The same thing happens when we try to explain colors to someone who was born blind. How can we convey the vividness of red or the calmness of blue? No matter how hard we try, it's impossible to fully describe. Philosophers often say that qualia are the subjective aspects of experience that can't be fully shared. If a person has never experienced an emotion or sensation, how can we accurately convey it? We could talk about something like a very spicy food. You might say it burns, makes you sweat, and speeds up your heart rate, but the true intensity can only be understood when felt. It's a unique sensation, nearly impossible to communicate entirely to someone who's never tried it. These gaps, this explanatory gap, reveal how limited we are when trying to express our perceptions. It's like trying to explain a dream. No matter how many details you give, the feelings and emotions experienced in that dream are something only you directly lived. And no matter how hard the listener tries to understand, something is always lost in translation. With colors, the same thing happens. What you see could be completely different from what someone else sees, but we have no way of knowing. The experience is unique to each individual. This mystery leads to an intriguing reflection. If there are things we'll never be able to fully communicate, how do we deal with these barriers in our understanding of the world? And even more, could children and even other animals face the same dilemma when perceiving reality? This is where the theory of mind comes in, helping us understand how beings begin to realize that others may have different experiences and knowledge. From an early age, children explore the world with curiosity, but something takes a while to develop. The ability to understand that other people can have thoughts, perceptions, and knowledge different from their own. This phenomenon is known as the theory of mind. When a baby observes another person, they don't imagine that the person might be seeing or thinking something different. It's as if the entire world is just an extension of their own mind. Only with time, around the age of 4 or 5, do children begin to develop the ability to recognize that others have their own perspectives. This development is fascinating. One classic example of this discovery happens during simple games like hide and seek. At first, the child believes that if they can't see someone, that person can't see them either. It's as if the entire universe shares the same vision as they do. Over time, the child begins to understand that others may have a different perception, a different experience. This process is so natural that most people don't even realize how much it transforms our social interactions. Now, don't think this is exclusive to humans. Research shows that some primates, like chimpanzees, also possess a rudimentary form of the theory of mind. They can recognize, for example, when a group member is distracted, using this to act stealthily. This reveals that the ability to understand another's perspective isn't purely human, but part of a broader evolution of social intelligence. And if this starts in childhood, have you ever wondered what it means in adulthood? Think about how many times we act without considering that the other person might be thinking in a completely different way from us. This ability to step outside yourself and understand that others have their own experiences is fundamental to our social life. And of course, it leads us to question, do we truly understand others' perceptions, or are we trapped in our own limited view? And now, what will you do with all this knowledge? Now that you know the colors you see, and even your deepest perceptions might be unique, how does that change the way you interact with the world? Will you continue believing everyone shares the same view, or will you open yourself to the possibility that others' experiences could be radically different from your own? Imagine how much we could improve our relationships and communication if we understood that each person sees the world uniquely. The question remains, how will you apply this to your daily life? Are you willing to rethink your perceptions and consider that the universe around you might be different from what you've always imagined? If this reflection has made you think in a new way, then you're on the right path. And if you want to keep expanding your horizons and exploring the unknown, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any content that could transform how you see the world, literally and figuratively. After all, the journey of knowledge never ends, and every new discovery is a chance to view life with fresh eyes.